Good morning, and God bless you on this Monday morning. Today, as we continue our series, Can You Relate?, we're going to be starting Moses. And really, I think Moses is one of those biblical characters. There is so much known about him that I'd like to do a different aspect or a different story from Moses' life each day this week. And we're going to start with what I call Moses the murderer. And that may be a little shocking because most of us don't really pay a whole lot of attention to the very first time we're introduced to Moses as a young adult. We don't know exactly how old, but it says that he's grown up. We're introduced to him first when he's a baby in a basket, but then we hear nothing about him until this story. And this is from Exodus chapter 2, beginning in verse 11. One day after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Glancing this way and that way and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day he went out and saw two Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, "Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" The man said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, "What I did must have become known." Pharaoh heard of this and tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. And the story continues to unfold from there. But this first time that we're introduced to Moses, this is a moment of rage, but it's also calculated rage. As you read the story, Moses goes out and he sees his own people. And apparently we don't know how he came to know who his true parents were, what his true ancestry was. But he knows that he is a Hebrew. He is not like the Egyptians who raised him. And he sees the hard labor of his people, that they're, in essence, they are slaves in the land in which they live. And one day he sees an Egyptian taskmaster, beating one of his fellow countrymen. And Moses, it's so calculated. He looks this way, he looks that way. And when he thinks that nobody's watching, he kills the Egyptian and buries him in the sand, thinking that he'd hidden his crime and that he'd get away with it. It's amazing how our sins usually don't stay hidden. It seems like you always get found out eventually. And sure enough, the next day he goes out there and he sees two Hebrews fighting with each other. And he can't understand it. He says, "Hey guys, why are you fighting? I mean, you're brothers, you're both Hebrews." And then one of the Hebrews says, "Who made you judge? Who are you to judge us? Are you thinking of doing to me what you did to that Egyptian?" And suddenly Moses realizes, okay, somebody saw what I did. And word has spread, and Pharaoh may find out about it. And sure enough, Pharaoh does. And Pharaoh is going to kill Moses for killing an Egyptian. And Moses has to flee into the wilderness where he lives for many, many years. I want you to think about it. Can you relate to Moses? That moment of rage where you saw someone else's behavior and you used it to justify your own actions, and your actions may not have been right or righteous at all. It's amazing how that what we call righteous anger becomes an excuse for us to indulge sometimes foul language and cursing and rudeness and hostility toward others. Because we were provoked, because they did this, and I wouldn't have said or done those things unless they did this. And how often we use our anger as an excuse for sin. But we're told in Ephesians chapter 4, in your anger do not sin. And do not let the sun go down while you're angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. And again in the book of James chapter 1, verse 19. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because our anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. You think about it, our anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. So can you relate to Moses, where in your anger you have said and done things that were wrong, that were sinful, even though you may have said that you were provoked or that you wouldn't have done it if they hadn't done this? There is that certain sense where it doesn't matter what our excuses are. There are times where wrong is wrong. And sometimes our anger is one of the greatest blinders to us and the greatest food for our pride to keep us from admitting when we're wrong. Can you relate to Moses, where you kind of went into it in that or another situation going where you know what you're about to do is wrong? In fact, you know it well enough that you actually look around to see if anybody's watching before you do it. I can't tell you, the thought of getting caught has prevented me from doing stupid things. But there have been times when I know what I want to do, and I know what I want to do is wrong, and there's that looking around, checking to see, is anybody going to see me? Is anybody going to catch me? It's terrible, I know. Can you relate to Moses, that you did something wrong and you tried to cover it up and then got discovered? Can you relate to Moses when you then had to flee because you were afraid of the consequences? Maybe not literally leave the country, but hide or break relationships. Or nowadays they call it ghosting, when you just simply stop responding and block people from your social media because you don't want to have to be confronted with what you've done. This is a story of Moses' life that I relate to all too well. Trust me, not that I've murdered anybody, but you know what? Under the wrong circumstances, the Lord has shown me enough of my temper and my self-righteous anger that, I can relate all too well to Moses. When I think of doing the wrong thing and checking to see if anybody's watching, I can relate to Moses. When I think of attempts to hide and cover up when I've done the wrong thing, I can relate to Moses. The one thing that I hope Moses learned in his life, and I feel like God has taught me, it's a work in progress, but I think I've made some progress, is even when you sinned, even when you know you've done wrong, call on the Lord and ask for forgiveness. Don't hide, don't run away. And that's probably about the only virtue that I've been able to really maybe grow in, is that, when I've screwed up, I usually tell someone. I don't like to carry that guilt. I don't like to feel like I have to hide or pretend or lie or make excuses. I just like to get it off my chest and make it right. So I ask you to think about Moses the murderer and ask yourself, can you relate? God bless you today. We'll talk tomorrow. Bye-bye.